Um, Hey, Shalom family, Most High in Christ bless. So if y'all don't know, I've been going through Daniel chapter 11. So we finally getting towards the end of this thing. We will go through verses 21 through 35 today, and that'll put us specifically during the time of the reign of Antiochus the fourth, or Antiochus Epiphanes, as well as the king of the south in this time frame would be Ptolemy Philometor, as well as his sister Cleopatra II, and his brother Ptolemy, I believe it's Tryphon, something like that. So they kind of was co-rulers together. So we'll be in that time frame today, and just looking at that history and what's going on in this time frame here. Before I jump into verse 21, we'll do a recap so we can figure out where we at, what we talked about last time in reference to the king of the north. His father, the father of Antiochus Epiphanes, Antiochus III or Antiochus the Great, was known as Antiochus the Great because he wanted to reconcile the territory that Alexander the Great, or the Greek, or like Captain Isaac called him, the Freak, Alexander the Freak, had established his kingdom. Antiochus III was trying to reestablish or gain the same amount of territory. So he was working with Philip and Perseus. When you read First Maccabees chapter 8, he also had went in and married his daughter Cleopatra the first to Ptolemy, and that's where you get the Rosetta Stone and all those things from. Hannibal had also combined his forces with Antiochus III. He also went into India. We'll read it right quick. Let's go to Daniel chapter 11. Let's start at verse. We'll start at 13. It'll be quick, though. Quickly. Go ahead.
Daniel chapter 11 and verse 13.
So I'm going to just breeze over these things, right? I started at Daniel chapter 10, I think, a while ago, right? Daniel chapter 10. That was probably about 4 classes ago. I did Daniel chapter 10. I did chapter 11, like 1 through 6. And then we went over the Ptolemies. Then I did chapter 11, 7 through like 20. I think I did Daniel 11, 1 through like 7, like twice, from the Ptolemy angle, from the angle of the king of the south, and then from the angle of the king of the north. So if this stuff is confusing to y'all, man, go back, watch the other classes, and hopefully it'll give you some more clarity. But I'm going to start right here. Come on.
Daniel chapter 11 and verse 13.
Yeah.
For the king of the north shall return, and shall set forth a multitude greater than the former, and shall certainly come after certain years with a great army and with much riches.
So a great army. So it's making reference to Antiochus the Third or Antiochus the Great. Go ahead.
And in those times there shall many stand up against the king of the south.
So a lot of people wanted to stand against the king of the south. Like I said, you got Philip and Perseus. You had Hannibal, right? You had these guys, they wanted to stand against Ptolemy. Go ahead.
Also the robbers of thy people shall exalt themselves to establish the vision.
Right, the Herodians as well. Go ahead.
But they shall fall.
Or the Idumeans, yep.
So the king of the north shall come and cast up a mount and take the most fenced cities, and the arms of the south shall not withstand, neither his chosen people, neither shall there be any strength to withstand.
Okay, so what's going on there is, read that verse again. That's 15?
Verse 15.
Yeah, is that what we just read?
Yes, sir.
Okay, read that again.
So the king of the north shall come.
Antiochus III came. Go ahead.
And cast up a mount.
Yep.
And take the most fenced cities.
So the most fenced cities in that time was like cities like Alexandria, right? Cities like Memphis. He was taking those cities, those strongholds where the majority of the population was in Egypt at that time. Go ahead.
And the arms of the south shall not withstand,
Yep.
neither his chosen people, neither shall there be any strength to withstand.
So the people, remember, I went over that as well. A lot of our people was in those areas, right? When we look at Isaiah chapter 19, I believe it is, tell you that it was 5 cities. It was 5 cities where our people was at, where the Israelites was at over there. And we set up things like the Septuagint, right? We had the island of Pharos. We had the Library of Alexander, where a lot of our brothers and sisters went and was learning in those schools, those Greek schools. Go ahead.
Verse 16.
Did we finish 15? Keep going. Finish 15.
That was it.
No, I think you said take the most fit cities. That's where we stopped. Go ahead. And the arms.
And the arms of the south shall not withstand.
Yeah, his army couldn't stop him. Go ahead.
Neither his chosen people.
Yep.
Neither shall there be any strength to withstand.
Yep.
But he that cometh against him shall do according to his own will, and none shall stand before him. And he shall stand in the glorious land, which by his hand shall be consumed.
So by his hand shall be consumed. So the glorious land is making reference to Israel, right? So he also conquered that area as well. He took Israel. He took Lebanon. Now you got to understand, I think I went over this as well. When you look at 1 Maccabees chapter 1, go to that real quick, chapter 1 and verse, I believe it was start at verse 33.
1 Maccabees chapter 1 and verse 33.
Yeah.
Then builded they the city of David with a great and strong wall, and with mighty towers, and made it a stronghold for them.
So this is making reference to the heathens coming in there and taking Jerusalem. Go ahead.
And they put therein a sinful nation, wicked men, and fortified themselves therein. And they stored it also with armor and victuals. And when they had gathered together the spoils of Jerusalem, they laid them up there, and so they became a sore snare.
Here it comes.
For it was a place to lie in wait against the sanctuary, and an evil adversary to Israel.
So when they say a place to lie in wait, they making reference to Jerusalem was a very strategic location in reference to military forces. Right? It was a place where you can put your food and your resources there in order to move your army from point A to point B, and it would be a place where they could restock. Right? So say you got an army that's in India fighting, a good central location for them to restock their resources would be in Jerusalem, right? If you got an army that's fighting in Egypt, guess what? A good central location for them to restock and get their food and get their even to transfer information, right? If they got orders, okay, let's move the army south or north, right? It would be a strategic location, Israel, in order to conquer those areas because it was central to a lot of those places, right? So it said it was a place to lie in wait. All right, let's go back to Daniel chapter 11, verse 16, quickly.
Daniel chapter 11 and verse 16. But he that cometh against him shall do according to his own will, and none shall stand before him. And he shall stand in the glorious land,
in Jerusalem,
which by his hand shall be consumed.
Go ahead.
He shall also set his face to enter with the strength of his whole kingdom, and upright ones with him. Thus shall he do.
So to say upright ones with him, remember the Phoenicians were our people, right? Were the Carthaginians or Hannibal, right? They had joined forces with Antiochus III or Antiochus III. Go ahead.
And he shall give him the daughter of women, corrupting her, but she shall not stand on his side, neither before him.
So when it say he shall give them the daughter of women, like I talked about last time, the king of the north, they had been perpetual losers, right? They kept losing everything. So even when they was winning, they was still finding a way to lose, right? So read that verse again. Watch this.
He shall also set his face to enter with the strength of his whole kingdom, and upright ones with him.
So he said, man, we got to get this land and these resources out of the Ptolemies, right? So we was talking about that before, that one of the major resources they had, or economical advantages they had, was the Euphrates. The Euphrates River it provided a lot of food for the region. It provided a lot of resources in reference to paper and things like that. And then the area that Antiochus had, right, the areas of Lebanon and Babylon and stuff like that, those areas had a lot of good wood, right? So, the Greeks and the Romans were known for making ships and houses and stuff out of wood. So that was kind of the economic advantage that the king of the north had. Let's read it one more time.
Daniel chapter 11 and verse 17.
Yeah.
He shall also set his face to enter with the strength of his whole kingdom, and upright ones with him. Thus shall he do. And he shall give him the daughter of women, corrupting her. But she shall not stand on his side, neither before him.
So when they say he shall give him the daughter of women, this is making reference to, right, the land of Israel, right, specifically, but generally Cleopatra the First, right? So Cleopatra the First, in the dowry or in the gift that Antiochus the Third gave to Ptolemy the Fifth, the dowry that he gave to her was the land of Seleucia, which included Israel, Lebanon, right? That's what it included. And so when you read the Rosetta Stone, that's what's in there, right? It's a translation of the dowry which was awarded to the Ptolemies from Antiochus III in him giving him his daughter, right? Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. All right, read it again.
Daniel chapter 11 and verse 17.
Yeah.
He shall also set his face to enter with the strength of his whole kingdom, and upright ones with him. Thus shall he do. And he shall give him the daughter of women, corrupting her. But she shall not stand on his side, neither before him.
So when it says she shall not stand on his side, neither before him, when Antiochus III sent his daughter in there to deal with Ptolemy V, he said, hey, go in there, get him on our side. You got to understand, at this time, Ptolemy V had made an alliance with Rome. He had made an alliance with Rome. And so Antiochus III, Philip and Perseus, Hannibal, they all hated Rome. So they said, look, we got to get Ptolemy on our side. So he sent his daughter down there. He said, look, put the move on him, you know what I'm saying? And once you put the move on him, once you kegel him, you know what I'm saying, then, you know what I'm saying, we'll get him on our side. Yeah, the tornado. Once you put that on him, you know what I'm saying, he'll be on our side. Read that last part again. But she shall not stand on his side,
neither before him.
Okay, so his daughter went down there, did put the move on Ptolemy V, but she said it's best that we side with Rome instead of with her father and his allies. So that's what's going on right there when it says neither shall she stand on his side. She didn't stand on the side of her father. She decided to stand with the Romans and her husband. All right, let's go.
Verse 18. After this shall he turn his face unto the isles, and shall take many. But a prince for his own behalf shall cause the reproach offered by him to cease. Without his own reproach he shall cause it to turn upon him.
Okay.
Then he shall turn his face toward the fort of his own land. But he shall stumble and fall and not be found.
So what's going on here is what's known as the Fifth Syrian War. Right during the Fifth Syrian War, I'm sorry, I digress. The Fifth Syrian War was what was going on between Antiochus and Antiochus III and Ptolemy V. That was the Fifth Syrian War. What's going on right here is these battles between Philip and Perseus, as well as Antiochus III and Hannibal. So things like the battles of Manganese. And things like that is what it's making reference to. So Antiochus the Great lost in this battle against Rome because his daughter sided with Rome. And so he lost this battle. Read verse 19 again.
Verse 19.
Yeah.
Then he shall turn his face toward the fort of his own land, but he shall stumble and fall and not be found.
So Antiochus III died. He died, but he didn't die in that battle of Manganese, but he did die. I don't remember exactly how he died, but he died, right? And so in this loss that he had in the battle of Manganese, I believe Hannibal committed suicide, and what was required was that Antiochus III give hostages. We looked at those decrees that Hannibal had to do as well, right, in reference to giving hostages. So he had to give hostages. Let's go to 1 Maccabees chapter 8 real quick. I'm just trying to give us a quick overview of what's going on before we get into verse 21. 1 Maccabees chapter 8. Just start at 1.
This is the book of First Maccabees, chapter 8 and verse 1. Now Judas had heard of the fame of the Romans, that they were mighty and valiant men, and such as would lovingly accept all that joined themselves unto them, and make a league of amity with all that came unto them. And that they were men of great valor. It was told him also of their wars and noble acts which they had done among the Galatians, and how they had conquered them and brought them under tribute. And what they had done in the country of Spain for the winning of the mines of silver and gold which is there.
So that battle in Spain, that's specifically going into Hannibal right there. Go ahead.
And that by their policy and patience they had conquered all the place, though it were very far from them. And the kings also that came against them from the uttermost part of the earth, till they had discomfited them, and given them a great overthrow, so that the rest did give them tribute every year.
So when you lose a war to these guys, you have to give them tribute every year. And that's what Hannibal was dealing with. That's what Antiochus III is dealing with here, right? He's dealing with that thing when you read in Daniel chapter 11 and verse 19, where it says, then he shall turn his face. No, don't turn it. I'm just reading. Then he shall turn his face towards the fort of his own land, but he shall stumble and fall and not be found. So he died. That's how he died. He died trying to get money to send to the Romans. That's how he died. He was going into different areas, different temples, and robbing them because he had to pay them Romans. All right, keep going.
Verse 5.
Yeah.
Beside this, how they had discomfited in battle Philip and Perseus, king of Shittims, with others that lifted up themselves against them and had overcome them.
So Philip and Perseus is making reference to kings of Macedon, right? Kings of Macedon here. Go ahead.
How also Antiochus, the great king of Asia,
so Antiochus III, Antiochus III, go ahead,
that came against them in battle,
Battle of Manganese,
having 120 elephants, with horsemen and chariots, and a very great army, was discomfited by them.
So they beat Antiochus with all his allies, Philip and Perseus, like I mentioned before, as well as Hannibal. Go ahead.
And how they took him alive and covenanted that he and such as reigned after him should pay a great tribute.
They say, we're going to tax you now that you went to war with us. Go ahead.
And give hostages.
And they had to give hostages.
And that which was agreed upon.
So that's what had happened. So he had to give hostages and things like that. Let's go back to Daniel chapter 11 and verse 19. So you see, you got to pay taxes, right? So this is it being fulfilled over here in First Maccabees chapter 8. What you're reading over here in Daniel chapter 11 is the prophecy of it. Go ahead.
Daniel chapter 11 and verse 19.
Yeah.
Then he shall turn his face toward the fort of his own land.
Yeah.
But he shall stumble and fall and not be found.
Because he had to pay these dudes that money. Go ahead.
Then shall stand up in his estate a raiser of taxes in the glory of the kingdom. But within few days he shall be destroyed, neither in anger nor in battle.
So I went over this briefly as well. So Seleucus IV went in there to take the money out of the temple of Jerusalem, and that's when that apparition appears. I believe it was Heliodorus. That apparition appeared before Heliodorus and scourged him. So this guy, Seleucus IV didn't only reign from 187 to around 175. So this was the older son of Antiochus III, right? Antiochus III. All right, let's go. So now we're going to jump into Daniel chapter 11 and verse 21. So that was a brief overview. Everybody catch their breath. That makes sense? You good? Did I say anything crazy? Both am I good? Everything makes sense. Antiochus. Y'all can say Antiochus, Antiochus. You know what I'm saying? We think we scholars around here now. You know what I'm saying? So we saying Antiochus. You know what I'm saying? we think we scholars around here now, man. You know what I'm saying? We working on it, man. We working on it. Lord's will, man. The Lord gonna keep opening up, you know, a little understanding out here in SD, and we'll be scholarly. You know what I'm saying? That's the tough part, man. Is because, you know, we read these things and we got to rely on some of these resources, as well as we got to pick out the information that's inaccurate. Because again, I'm not saying I know everything. I'm not saying I'm just reading stuff and just a spirit floating on top of my head and I just get it. Nah, I'm reading history books. I'm trying to piece out the stuff that makes sense and the stuff that don't make sense in reference to what the leadership has given me understanding on, right? And rest to the bishops and the deacons and the captains. And then you just build from there. Right? Give me that Jeremiah 6:16.
The book of Jeremiah, chapter 6 and verse 16.
Yeah.
Thus saith the Lord, stand ye in the ways and see, and ask for the old paths, where is the good way, and walk therein. And ye shall find rest for your souls. But they said, we will not walk therein.
Well, that's not what I'm saying, but that's what those Negroes said to Jeremiah. But it says, ask for the old paths, right? And you'll find rest for your soul. Because if you try to just depend on these books alone, right, they're going to tell you that the stuff, the biblical prophecies that you're reading in Daniel and in Isaiah is inaccurate. Because they cannot verify that they are the wicked in which the Bible is talking of. You know what I'm saying? If they would just be able to say, you know what? Oh, that's me. Then all the prophecies will line up. Then it'll line up. But long as they say, you know what, this is inaccurate right here because this is talking about Antiochus the third and not the fourth and blah blah blah. And then to make the whole prophecies off the normal course it should go, because they can't identify themselves as the wicked.
You can't say your granddaddy's the devil. Then you got to say you the devil.
Then you got to say you the devil.
Yeah. So
I am born of the devil. You can't say that. Give me that. What was that? Wisdom of Solomon. Give me Wisdom of Solomon right quick. Yeah. That's why they can only go so far with the prophecy. So you got to understand, they'll give you some information, and then they'll stop. They'll be like, I don't know what this means right here. Yeah, you don't know you don't want to tell me what it means because it's talking about you. Let's go to Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 18 and verse 7. I love the scripture.
It's the book of Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 18 and verse 7.
Yeah.
So of thy people was accepted both the salvation of the righteous and destruction of the enemies.
So you got to be able to accept both to identify and line up all the prophecies accurately. If you can't say, you know what, the destruction of God's enemies is going to come. If you can't say that and identify that, you know, as those of the other nations can identify that they are the enemies, then the prophecies will never make sense. They'll give you some information. It'll be right. And then you get to one point, and then you be like, nope, they lying now. You know what I'm saying? And you got to be able to decipher that. Let's go to Romans chapter 13, verse Romans chapter 15, verse 4.
It's the book of Romans, chapter 15 and verse 4. Yeah. For whatsoever things were written aforetime were written for our learning, that we through patience and comfort of the scriptures might have hope.
So all these things that we're reading in reference to Daniel should give us hope, right? That the prophecies that the Lord wrote come to pass. And that way when we read Revelations and us going back into the kingdom and the 12 gates and us ruling and all that stuff, if we can identify what's going on here in Daniel and say these things came to pass, guess what? We read Revelations, we will have the patience and the hope and the faith that those things are going to come to pass. You know what I'm saying? Let's go to Daniel 11, verse 21. I get started now. Let's go. Come on.
Daniel chapter 11 and verse 21.
Yeah.
And in his estate shall stand up a vile person.
So like we just read in verse 20, who was reigning before him was his older brother, Seleucus IV. I believe that is. I could be wrong. Can you look that up? Look up Antiochus IV, so I can see who preceded him, so I don't sound crazy. I believe it's Seleucus IV. I think I got it in this book. Seleucus. No, it's not Philip. What are you talking about? It was Seleucus. I just can't remember which one. Hannibal, Africa, 175. Yeah, Seleucus IV. Yeah, it was Seleucus IV. You get it. Seleucus IV had reigned right before his brother. Now remember, his little brother, go to 1 Maccabees chapter 1 verse 10. Remember what happened to his little brother now. His dad lost the war. What happened to his little brother? Come on.
1 Maccabees chapter 1 and verse 10.
Yeah.
And there came out of them a wicked root.
Yeah.
Antiochus, surnamed Epiphanes.
So Antiochus the fourth, Antiochus the fourth. Go ahead.
son of Antiochus the king,
Son of Antiochus the great or Antiochus the third. Go ahead.
who had been an hostage
What
at
was he?
Rome. At hostage at Rome.
So he was a hostage at Rome. So when we read Daniel chapter 11, verse 21, go ahead.
Daniel chapter 11 and verse 21. And in his estate shall stand up a vile person, to whom they shall not give the honor of the kingdom.
Why would they not give him the honor of the kingdom? He had been a hostage at Rome. He had been learned and trained and brought up in Rome. Go ahead.
But he shall come in peaceably.
He came in peaceably, though.
And obtain the kingdom by flattery.
So he had learned how to move, right, with patience and his policies during his time in Rome. We got to think, man, y'all think he was in Rome just I don't know, playing jacks or something? You know what I'm saying? Skipping around. Nah, they was in there training him how to be the ruler that they wanted him to be, how to be what they would call a puppet ruler. Right? U.S. do it all the time to this day, right? When you look at, guys like Saddam Hussein, he say, I was trained in America. You know what I'm saying? You look at what's your guy, Bin Laden. He said, I was trained in America. Right? A lot of these different guys say they was trained here to go out there and be rulers. Dig what I'm saying? That's why they keep rejecting those prime ministers they keep setting up in Iraq. They be like, you Negroes was over there in the U.S. I know we can't trust y'all. Y'all puppets. You know what I'm saying? And so one of the main issues that Antiochus or Antiochus IV was dealing with was that he was brought up in Rome. They didn't have the same affinity that they would have towards those that was there. You know what I'm saying? Let's read 1 Maccabees chapter 16, and I want verse 19. I just want y'all to see this real quick. 1 Maccabees. Because we're going to whistle back and forth between 1st and 2nd Maccabees. But what always confuses people a lot of times is how does 1st Maccabees and 2nd Maccabees align? They do not. I'm going to show you. Come on.
This is the book of 1 Maccabees, chapter 16 and verse 19.
When I say they don't align, I'm talking about in reference to the time period in which they're speaking, because 1 Maccabees is 16 chapters, 2nd Maccabees is 15 chapters. But what you'll read when you read like 1 Samuel and 2 Samuel, it's a continuation of the story, right? No, it's not the continuation of the same story. It's just the timeline is just still going forward. When you're reading 1 Maccabees and 2 Maccabees, that's not what's happening. Because when you read, you got to remember, when you read 1 Samuel to 2 Samuel, you go from Saul through David, right? And then when you get to 1 Kings now, you in Solomon. So the timeline is just progressing. Right? But when you read 1 Maccabees and 2 Maccabees, that's not what's happening. Right? The narrative is not progressing. Go ahead, read that thing.
1 Maccabees chapter 16 and verse 19.
Yeah.
He sent others also to Gazara to kill John. And unto the tribunes he sent letters to come unto him, that he might give them silver and gold and rewards.
So when it say John, this is talking about John Hyrcanus. John Hyrcanus reigned around 104 BC. And so the end of this story, the end of 1 Maccabees, the narrative of 1 Maccabee ends with John Hyrcanus around 104 BC. And that's going to move you into dealing more specifically with Rome around 63 BC is when Pompey comes in, the General Pompey comes in and takes Jerusalem to be a Roman province. Let's jump over to 2 Maccabees and let's look at the end of that. 2 Maccabees chapter 15. And we'll look at verse 30.
Second Maccabees chapter 15 and verse 30.
Yeah.
And Judas.
And who?
Judas.
Judas. So this is still talking about Judas. This is ending, and it's still talking about Judas. Go ahead.
Who was ever the chief defender of the citizens, both in body and mind, and who continued his love toward his countrymen all his life, commanded to strike off Nicanor's head and his hand with his shoulder, and bring them to Jerusalem.
So this is going into what we're gonna have this week, right? The day of Nicanor, right? Go ahead.
So when he was there and had called them of his nation together and set the priests before the altar, he sent for them that were of the tower, and showed them the vile Nicanor's head and the hand of that blasphemer, which with proud brags he had stretched out against the holy temple of the Almighty.
Go ahead, drink some water, man. Get some water. You need some water? You good? All right. Go ahead.
And when he had cut out the tongue of that ungodly Nicanor, he commanded that they should give it by pieces unto the fowls, and hang up the reward of his madness before the temple.
Yeah.
So every man praised toward the heaven the glorious Lord, saying, Blessed be he that hath kept his own place undefiled. He hanged also Nicanor's head upon the tower, an evident and manifest sign unto all of the help of the Lord. And they ordained all with a common decree in no case to let that day pass without solemnity, but to celebrate the 13th day of the 12th month, which in the Syrian tongue is called Adar, the day before Mordecai Day.
The day before Mordecai's day. So that's making reference to Purim. Making reference to Purim. Right? So, what was the point? The point is, when you're reading here in Second Maccabees chapter 15, jump back to First Maccabees chapter 7. First Maccabees chapter 7, and let's look at verse. What do I want? Verse 47.
First Maccabees chapter 7 and verse 47. Afterwards they took the spoils and the prey and smote off Nicanor's head.
So you see here, right, the same thing you're reading in First Maccabees chapter 7 is the end of Second Maccabees. It's the end of it. So the narrative of First Maccabees and Second Maccabees is not a continuation of the story. What you're reading in Second Maccabees is more of the details that happen during the same time of only Judas Maccabees and the times before that. So it starts earlier. It actually starts prior to his father coming on the scene. It starts with Onias and Seleucus and all those guys. So I hope that makes sense. Let's jump back to Daniel chapter 11. So I just wanted y'all to see that First and Second Maccabees are not a continuation. All right, they don't continue. Second Maccabees is more detailed of Judas's life. Daniel 11:21 again. Go ahead.
Daniel chapter 11 and verse 21.
Yeah.
And in his estate shall stand up a vile person, to whom they shall not give the honor of the kingdom, but he shall come in peaceably and obtain the kingdom by flattery.
So obtain the kingdom by flattery. So the way that he took over the kingdom of Antiochus or the Seleucid Empire, the way he took over it was by flatteries, right? He came in peaceably, right? He said, everybody be on my side. I know my brother died. I got it. I'm going to take care of y'all, right? And then he started killing everybody. We'll see. Here we go.
Verse 22.
Yeah.
And with the arms of a flood shall they be overflown from before him, and shall be broken. Yea, also the prince of the covenant.
So it say, with the arms of the flood shall they be overflown from before him. Let's go to Revelations chapter 12 and verse 15. The arms of the flood. Let's see what the flood is.
Revelation chapter 12 and verse 15.
Yeah.
And the serpent cast out of his mouth water as a flood after the woman, that he might cause her to be carried away of the flood. And the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened up her mouth and swallowed up the flood which the dragon cast out of his mouth.
So it was a flood that came out of its mouth. Out of its mouth. Let's go to the Ephesians chapter 4 and verse 14. I'm not giving y'all nothing new, right? The bishop went over this thing, what the flood represents. Ephesians 4 verse 14.
Ephesians chapter 4 and verse 14.
Yeah.
That we henceforth be no more children, tossed to and fro, and carried about with every wind of doctrine, by the sleight of men and cunning craftiness.
So the doctrines in which they were coming out with was the flood, right? So be an Antiochian, Hellenize, become a Greek, wear this hat. Give me James chapter 1, verse 6. The flood.
It's the book of James, chapter 1 and verse 6.
Yeah.
But let him ask in faith, nothing wavering. For he that wavereth is like a wave of the sea, driven with the wind and tossed. For let not that man think that he shall receive anything of the Lord.
So it's in your thoughts and how you think, right? That's what tosses you to and fro. That flood of how you think and what they put out there is what moves you around. So when it's talking about the flood, it's talking about that doctrine of Hellenization, right? When you read Daniel 11:22, read that again.
Daniel chapter 11 and verse 22. And with the arms of a flood shall they be overflown from before him, and shall be broken. Yea, also the prince of the covenant.
Also the prince of the covenant. Let's go to 2 Maccabees. Also the prince of the covenant. 2 Maccabees. Let's look at chapter 4. Let's read verse 7.
Is the book of 2 Maccabees chapter 4 and verse 7.
Yeah.
But after the death of Seleucus,
so this is Seleucus or Seleucus the fourth. Go ahead.
When Antiochus called Epiphanes,
the fourth. Go ahead. These are brothers.
took the kingdom.
Took the kingdom by flatteries.
Jason, the brother of Onias, labored underhand to be high priest.
You see what he did? So read that verse in Daniel 11 and verse 22 one more time.
Daniel chapter 11 and verse 22. And with the arms of a flood shall they be overflown from before him, and shall be broken. Yea, also the prince of the covenant.
Yea, also the prince of the covenant. So no, Onias right here was the one that was withholding the covenant. And he was broken. He was killed. He was murdered. They had took the natural line of the priesthood and now turned it into corruption. Now you can pay to be the high priest. Whoever goes, it goes to the highest bidder. Because you got to remember, these Antiochians, this Seleucus dynasty, they got to pay these Romans taxes. So they taking money whatever way they can get it. You going to give us money for being high priest? Good, we need it. We got to pay these Romans. You know what I'm saying? Let's go back. Daniel chapter 11. And we'll deal with verse 23 now.
Daniel chapter 11 and verse 23.
Yeah.
And after the league made with him, he shall work deceitfully. For he shall come up and shall become strong with a small people.
So that's what we just read, right? Onias and these guys, they were, on their, not Onias, but Jason and Simon. A lot of these guys were on their side, right? Let's stay where we was at. First Maccabees chapter 4. Watch what happens. Verse 8. Yeah, we was at. Read 7 first.
2 Maccabees chapter 4 and verse 7. Yeah. But after death of Seleucus, when Antiochus called Epiphanes took the kingdom, Jason, the brother of Onias, labored underhand to be high priest.
So he paid him to become the high priest. Go ahead.
Promising unto the king by intercession 360 talents of silver, and of another revenue 80 talents.
So he said, look, we got revenues, right? We gonna make money for you, bro. You know what I'm saying? Let me be the high priest. I'm going to help your economy stay afloat because I know these Romans is taxing you. I got you. Come on.
Beside this, he promised to assign 150 more, if he might have license to set him up a place for exercise and for the training up of youth in the fashions of the heathen, and to write them of Jerusalem by the name of Antiochians.
Yes.
Which when the king had granted.
So the king granted this thing. Now, why would he grant them to be Antiochians? See, we don't understand that these were schools of learning, right? I talked about this before. These were schools of learning, right? So in these schools of learning, you got to pay to send your kids to school. You paying to send your kids to school. Guess what? Antiochus and them or Antiochus and them is making money. They making money off of you. You coming to our Greek schools, we gonna pay you. You wasn't just going in there for free. They also had prostitutes in there. They also was doing other things, right? Let's keep going. Watch what it say.
Which when the king had granted, and he had gotten into his hand the rule, he forthwith brought his own nation to the Greekish fashion.
So he encouraged this behavior, right? He encouraged this behavior. You got to think, man, I don't know how you would do it back in this day. Like, it wasn't no commercials saying come to Coleman College or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, you know what I'm saying? They ain't had none of that. But, they probably had, posters up or something to encourage the people that, look, this is something that you want to do. You know what I'm saying? So they encouraging the people. Go ahead.
I'm just thinking, like, when I went to Howard, it was like word of mouth.
Yeah.
So somebody tell you, hey, it's like this over there. And
yeah, you like, dang, it's a bunch of prostitutes in there?
Yeah, like, you're not even worried about school. You want to be worried about
you want to just go be a part of the Greekish fashion.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, you like, dang, it's going down over there, man. They be fresh, they dress. You know what I'm saying? They be stepping. You're like, oh, I want to go. Oh, I want to go. That's what's going on. You know what I'm saying? Come on.
Verse 11, and the royal privileges granted of special favor to the Jews by the means of John, the father of Eupolemus.
You see that? You see they got special favors. They say, all right, man, you know what they got today. You get those sororities and you get special favors. You get special treatment. Those fraternities, you network. You know what I'm saying? So now your family is going to be in a better position. So you want to go to these schools. You're going to pay whatever it takes to get your kids in there. Come on.
Who went ambassador to Rome for amity and aid, he took away.
Yeah.
And putting down the governments which were according to the law, he brought up new customs against the law.
Yeah.
For he built gladly a place of exercise under the tower itself, and brought the chief young men under his subjection, and made them wear a hat.
You see that? So he set it up right next to the main what you call it? The main place that they would go against would be the temple, right? So they set it up right next to the temple. They set it up. They built the school right next to it. Prostitution, all that stuff going on right next to it. They like, man, would I rather go over here where I got to, you know what I'm saying, learn these laws, or would I rather go over here and revel it up? You know what I'm saying? Prostitutes going in and out right next to the temple. You like, man, it look like it's going down over there. So you going to go over. Some of them brothers went over there. That's what happened. You know what I'm saying? Let me shake your head. Go ahead.
Just thinking of the Negro who thought he was slick and said, hey, I'm going to bring the bull and I'm going to tie him outside. Then I'm going to run over here and
I'm going to run over here.
And then go in the
temple right afterwards. That's, boy, Negroes, boy. They probably were doing that stuff. They right next to each other. They right next door. You know what I'm saying? Competing businesses right next door. You know what I'm saying? Competing. Come on.
Verse 13.
But see, really, they wouldn't even be competing because this guy John had took over the high priesthood. So whether the people come into the actual place to the temple to do the right thing, or whether they go to do the wrong thing, Antiochus Epiphanes like, we making money either way. We making money either way. You know what I'm saying? Go ahead.
Now such was the height of Greek fashions, and increase of heathenish manners through the exceeding profaneness of Jason, that ungodly wretch, and no high priest.
That's funny, man. I always like to read that because whoever's writing Maccabees is putting his personal spin on it. That ungodly wretch. I don't like them niggas. Like, he put it all in there. I don't like them Negroes over there. Go ahead.
Verse 14.
Yeah.
That the priests had no courage to serve any more at the altar.
You see that? Like we just read in Daniel, it said, also the prince of the covenant shall be broken. Go ahead.
But despising the temple.
They hated the temple because right next to it, they over there having fun, the party all night over there. He like, man, I'd rather be over there. Go ahead.
And neglecting the sacrifices.
Yep, like you said, they tie up the bull outside and go next door and don't ever make it back to the bull. You know what I'm saying? Don't ever make it back to the offering because they over there getting it in. Go ahead.
Hasten to be partakers of the unlawful allowance in the place of exercise.
Dang.
After the game of discus called them forth.
They said hastened. What did it say? Hey, they couldn't wait to get over there. It's going down. Hastened. They forgot about everything else and went over there. Go ahead.
Not setting by the honors of their fathers, but liking the glory of the Grecians best of all.
So that's what's going on when you read that they was broken. You see that they was he entered in peaceably. right? Where are we at? Verse 23. Read 22 and 23.
Daniel chapter 11 and verse 22. And with the arms of a flood shall they be overflown from before him.
So we see the arms of that flood was them setting up the temple right next to that thing. They got Onias out. Jason set it up. Arms of the flood came in. Everybody want to do the wrong thing because it looked like more fun. Go ahead.
And shall be broken, yea, also the prince of the covenant. And after the league made with him, he shall work deceitfully. For he shall come up and shall become strong with a small people.
He became strong. He started making money through this temple, through what he set up, right? Through he setting up these different schools. Because you got to understand, there was other schools set up throughout the kingdom of the Seleucid Empire. It was other schools set up where they was making money. Go ahead.
Verse 24. He shall enter peaceably even upon the fattest places of the province. And he shall do that which his fathers have not done, nor his fathers' fathers. He shall scatter among them the prey, and spoil, and riches. Yea, and he shall forecast his devices against the strongholds, even for a time.
So it say, he shall do the things that his fathers didn't do. All right, let's go to, what did I write down over here? What was that, verse what? 24? Go to 2 Maccabees chapter 4. Oh, we in chapter 4. Let's start at verse 30.
2 Maccabees chapter 4 and verse 30.
Yeah.
While those things were in doing, they of Tarsus had malice made insurrection, because they were given to the king's concubine called Antiochus.
Okay, so he was dividing his land up amongst people. You know what I'm saying? So when they say he was doing the things that his fathers didn't do, they was trying to keep everything, all the resources together. He said, you know what, if I give you a piece, give you a piece, give you a piece, then the kingdom will run better like that. You got to think he was brought up in Rome, so that's how they ran things. They had senators and governors in different places, so they was like, all right, so this is what he's doing now. Read that verse in Daniel 11:24 again. So he set up his concubine over here. He's setting up his, governors and friends over there. Go ahead, read that again.
Daniel chapter 11 and verse 24.
Yeah.
He shall enter peaceably even upon the fattest places of the province.
Yep.
And he shall do that which his fathers have not done.
He divided up stuff. Go ahead.
Nor his fathers' fathers.
Yep.
He shall scatter among them the prey and spoil and riches.
Yep.
Yea, and he shall forecast his devices against the strongholds, even for a time.
Even for a time. So he's dividing it up, letting everybody get a piece of this money that he's making. Go ahead.
Verse 25. And he shall stir up his power and his courage against the king of the south with a great army.
Yeah.
And the king of the south shall be stirred up to battle with a very great and mighty army. But he shall not stand, for they shall forecast devices against him.
So the king of the south shall not stand. They forecast devices against him. This is going into the 6th Syrian war. This is the 6th Syrian war right here. So if you want to make a note, that's what I would put here, right? He's going to fight against the king of the south again, right? He got everybody making money. We balling over here. He got people on his side. So now they go in to fight the 6th Syrian war. Read verse 25 one more time.
Daniel chapter 11 and verse 25.
Yeah.
And he shall stir up his power and his courage against the king of the south with a great army. And the king of the south shall be stirred up to battle with a very great and mighty army. But he shall not stand, for they shall forecast devices against him. Yea, they that feed of the portion of his meat shall destroy him, and his army shall overflow, and many shall fall down slain.
All right, cool. So this guy that he's fighting against is Ptolemy Philomator. Let's go back to 2 Maccabees again, chapter 11, and we're gonna jump to verse 21. Watch this.
2 Maccabees chapter 11 and verse 21.
Yeah.
Fare ye well, the 100 and...
No, I'm wrong. Chapter 4. Why did I say 11? I meant chapter 4. I'm staying in chapter 4 for a little bit. It's just different points in here. You got to kind of put them together. 4 and 21.
2 Maccabees chapter 4 and verse 21.
Yeah.
Now when Apollonius, the son of Menesthius, was sent into Egypt for the coronation of King Ptolemaeus Philometor,
Yep.
Antiochus, understanding him not to be well affected to his affairs, provided for his own safety. Whereupon he came to Joppa, and from thence to Jerusalem.
So look, so this Ptolemy Philometor, who is this to Antiochus the Fourth? Who would this be? Anybody got a clue who this would be to him? Who would this guy be? Who would Ptolemy Philometor be to Antiochus the Fourth? Huh? You know who it is? Who will be in comparison to him? Not his son-in-law. Not his son-in-law. Who was Cleopatra? Who was Cleopatra the first? Cleopatra the first? No. No. What they got? What y'all got? Who is that? Who was Ptolemy what's it call him? Philometor in comparison to Antiochus the Fourth? Who is he? Who is he to him? Because look, read verse 21 again. Watch what he do for him. Now this the king of the south, but they about to go to war. Like what? What's going on?
Second Maccabees chapter 4 and verse 21.
Yeah.
Now when Apollonius, the son of Menesthius, was sent into Egypt for the coronation of King Ptolemaeus Philometor.
So it was a coronation that was going on. He's becoming the king. Go ahead.
Antiochus, understanding him not to be well affected to his affairs.
He's like, look, he ain't taking care of his business over there. Go ahead.
Provided for his own safety.
Antiochus sent some people over there and took care of his safety. Go ahead.
Whereupon he came to Joppa, and from thence to Jerusalem.
Then this guy, Ptolemy Philopator, went from Joppa to Jerusalem because his affairs were not in order. Who would this be? What does that say right there? Son or grandson? No. I just did a review over the Cleopatra the First, Ptolemy the Fourth. What that say? Cleopatra was his sister, so it'd be his nephew. There you go. Who was that? Zerubbabel. Good looking Zerubbabel. That's exactly who it would be. His nephew, right? His sister Cleopatra the First was this guy Ptolemy Philometor's mother. So that would be his nephew. Make sense? Look at him. Look at him. Heads. What's up? Do it make sense or not?
Say what you said again.
That's his nephew. It say it in here? I don't know if it's in it. I don't remember. It might. Cleopatra the First was the daughter of Antiochus the Third. Antiochus the Third was also the father of Antiochus the Fourth. Right? So they brother and sister. Cleopatra the First was sent to marry Ptolemy the Fourth. Had a baby, Ptolemy the Fifth, which is this guy, Ptolemy Philometor, and her brother took care of him. So that's his nephew. That's his nephew. Is that clear? I pray that's clear. What's up? I think so. Go look it up. Cleopatra the First. I don't know. Don't let me just, I'll just say some stuff. Go look it up real quick. Cleopatra the First married a Ptolemy. Her dad was Antiochus the Third. Got it. Cleopatra the First. Go back. It should be right there. Go back up. Cleopatra the First was a princess of the Seleucid Empire, queen of Ptolemaic Egypt by marriage. Ptolemy the Fifth of Egypt. There you go. And regent of Egypt during the minority of their son Ptolemy the Sixth, that's Philometor, from her husband's death in 186, her own death. Click on that Ptolemy the Sixth right there. There you go. See? Oh, you see it? Ptolemy Philometor. All right. You can leave that up actually, Boda. We'll go back. We're gonna look at this a little bit. We're gonna come back to it in a minute. You can bring up my book right quick. Let's go to that. We're going to look at the Bible Atlas with charts, maps, and biblical reconstructions. We're going to look at that again. So this is going into the 6th Syrian War. The 6th Syrian War. All right. We're going to look at page 242. 242. And I'm going to look at where it say up. Right there. Up to. All right. So right here we say, up to the time of Antiochus IV, the office of the high priest had been hereditary and held for life. However, Jason, the brother of the high priest, offered the king a large sum of money to be appointed high priest. Antiochus needed the money and made the appointment. Jason also offered an additional sum to receive permission to build gymnasiums near the temple. This shows the pressure towards Hellenism. Within a few years, Menelaus, a high priest, but not of the high priestly line, offered the king more money to be named high priest in place of Jason. He stole vessels from the temple to pay what he had promised. This is the part I want right here. Antiochus sought to add Egypt to his territory. He was proclaimed king of Egypt. So how was he proclaimed king of Egypt? He went there, got his nephew who was under attack by his brother and sister. And then he said, well, now I'm the king. Since I got my nephew here, I'm going to be the king, bro. You know what I'm saying? That's what's going on. All right, so it said, Antiochus sought to add Egypt to his territory. He was proclaimed king of Egypt, but when he returned the following year to take control of the land, the Romans confronted him and told him to leave Egypt. We'll go back to that. So let's go back to Daniel chapter 11, verse 25 one more time.
Daniel chapter 11 and verse 25.
Yeah.
And he shall stir up his power and his courage against the king of the south with a great army.
Yep.
And the king of the south shall be stirred up to battle with a very great and mighty army. But he shall not stand, for they shall forecast devices against him.
So within this kingdom, or within Egypt, there was 3 rulers, right? So you had Ptolemy Philometor, who was young, but he also had an older brother and sister that wanted to be rulers as well, right? Go ahead.
Yea, they that feed of the portion of his meat shall destroy him.
Read that part again.
Yea, they that feed of the portion of his meat shall destroy him.
So his brother and sister said, we got to get rid of this Negro. So that's when his uncle swoop in, Uncle Epiphanes come down and say, I got you, nephew. You know what I'm saying? Go ahead.
And his army shall overflow, and many shall fall down slain.
Yep.
And both these kings' hearts shall be to do mischief.
Yep.
And they shall speak lies at one table.
Yep.
But it shall not prosper. For yet the end shall be at the time appointed.
So he set it up. He said, look, man, I'll sit down, make peace with my uncle here. Put me back in Egypt. And then when he got over there, he tried to make peace with his brother and sister instead. Let's go back. Let's go to Wiki right quick so we can look at that. Just go to Wiki. All right. I won't just scroll down. It should say like his first reign. Nah, keep going. Because he reigned twice. Because he was taken out, like we just read. He was taken out by his uncle. Nah, not that. First reign. There we go. All right, here we go. So it's a regency. Ptolemy, who was only 6 years old, was immediately crowned king, with his mother Cleopatra I as co-regent. In documents from this period, Cleopatra is named before Ptolemy, and the coins were minted under the joint authority and her son. What'd you say? Of her and her son. In the face of continued, what's that say? Agitation for war with the Seleucids,
Cleopatra persuaded a peaceful policy because of her own Seleucid roots and because a war would have threatened her hold on power. Cleopatra probably, what you just do? I couldn't see what just happened. Cleopatra probably died 178, early 177. Though some scholars place her death around 176 BC. Ptolemy was still too young to rule of his own on her deathbed. Cleopatra appointed Iulius and Linnaeus, two of her close associates, as regents. So he set these guys up as governors. Scroll down. Iulius, a eunuch who had been Ptolemy's tutor, was more senior to minting coinage. Linnaeus was Syrian slave who probably come from Egypt as part of Cleopatra's return. He seems absent. Oh, scroll down. This is the part I want right here. Iulius and Linnaeus sought to reinforce their authority by augmenting the dignity of Ptolemy. In early 175, they arranged the wedding of Ptolemy VI to his sister Cleopatra VII. Brother and sister marriage was traditional in the Ptolemaic dynasty and was probably adopted. They want to blame everybody. Whatever. Y'all want to marry y'all sisters. Whatever. Ptolemy and Cleopatra were still two young children, so the marriage was not consummated for many years. She had a daughter and she had a son right here, you see, right? Have at least 4 children at this time. The couple were incorporated into the Ptolemaic dynasty called Theos Philometor, mother living God's name under deceased Cleopatra I. Egyptian religion comes up. I don't want none of that. All right, keep going. So now we're going to look at the 6th Syrian War. So we can kind of see what's going on. All right, so the Seleucid king, Seleucus IV, we just read about him. He already dead. 2 months conflict with his brother Antiochus IV, secured the throne. What do I want? Keep going. Where it say, by 172, preparations for war were underway. From 171 BC, both Rome and Macedon were occupied with the Third Macedonian War, and the Egyptian government considered the moment for war had come. In 170 BC, Ptolemy the Eighth was promoted to the status of co-regent. I don't know who this guy is, right? He's come out of nowhere. This guy's name is Tryphon. Click on him. I don't know where he come from. We'll come right back. Just click on him so I can see where he come from. I know his name was Tryphon, which means fat guy. Right? Yeah. So I know he was like, so when it say, read Daniel 11 and verse 26 again.
Daniel chapter 11 and verse 26. Yea, they that feed of the portion of his meat shall destroy him, and his army shall overflow, and many shall fall down slain.
So it say, they that eat of his portion. So this same guy, these guys that was sitting at the table with him, was trying to destroy him, right? So this Ptolemy the Eighth, Eucrates or Tryphon, Ptolemy benefactor, the luxurious, 184, 28 to 116, nicknamed Sycon or Fatty, was a king of Ptolemaic dynasty of Egypt. He was the younger son of Ptolemy the Fourth and Cleopatra the First. Okay, so that was their brother. So that was his little brother. All right, you can go back. Yeah. Oh, nah, go back. Matter of fact, go back. I just seen something. I think he married his sister too, right? Ptolemy Philometor and his sister Cleopatra. Hold on. Yeah, right. Ptolemy was originally made co-ruler with his older siblings in the run-up to the 6th Syrian War. You see that? So they sided against the oldest brother, Ptolemy Philometor. So that's why he had to get the heck up out of there. Let's go back. A coup, as you would say. Ptolemy the Eighth was promoted to status. Was declared the first year of the new era. John Granger argues the two brothers had become the figureheads for separate factions in the court. So, like you see, so we say figureheads for separate factions. So the other guy, Philometor, was with his uncle, right? And then this guy, Sycon or Tryphon, was with the Romans. You know what I'm saying? John Granger, the figureheads within the quarter to run up to the war. Shortly afterwards, Ptolemy the Sixth, who was now around 16, was declared an adult and celebrated his coming of age in the ceremony. That's what we just read about in First Maccabees, right? Although Ptolemy the Sixth was now ostentatible, ruling in his own right. In practice, Iulius and Linnaeus remained in charge of the government. The Six Syrian War broke out shortly after this. Probably in early 169, the Ptolemaic army set out to the border fort of Pelusium to invade Palestine, but was intercepted by Antiochus IV army in Sinai. The defeated army to the Nile Delta. Antiochus seized Pelennus and moved on the Delta. Pelusium. Okay, sure. The defeat led to the collapse of the Ptolemaic government in Alexandria. Iulius attempted to send Ptolemy to Aegon, the island of Samothrace, with the Ptolemaic treasure. Before he could happen, the prominent Ptolemaic general Calmnus and Sinus. It tell you like they sit down and talk, like Ptolemy and his uncle. Where is that? I don't see it. Okay, they negotiated an agreement of friendship which reduced Ptolemy to the Seleucid client. See, he was ran by his uncle. When news of the agreement reached Alexandria, where we was at, right, the people of the city rioted. All right, so that's what's going on in the Sixth Syrian War. He negotiated with his uncle, and then they ain't like him. You know what I'm saying? All right, let's go back to Daniel 11 and 25.
Daniel chapter 11 and verse 25.
Yeah.
And he shall stir up his power and his courage against the king of the south with a great army.
Yep.
And the king of the south shall be stirred up to battle with a very great and mighty army. But he shall not stand, for they shall forecast devices against him.
So his brother and his sister, they fighting against him. Go ahead.
Yea, they that feed of the portion of his meat shall destroy
brother,
him.
His little sister, go ahead.
And his army shall overflow.
So he got beat by his uncle. Go ahead.
And many shall fall down slain.
Yep.
And both these kings' hearts shall be to do mischief.
So Ptolemy Philometor and his uncle Antiochus IV, they wanted to do mischief. Go ahead.
And they shall speak lies at one table.
They both sat down. They came up with the lie to tell, so he could go back and rule and be like, look, we negotiated peace. Go ahead.
But it shall not prosper.
But they rioted. They didn't like that. They didn't trust it. The people of Egypt. Go ahead.
For yet the end shall be at the time appointed.
Yeah.
Then shall he return into his land with great riches.
Yep.
And his heart shall be against the holy covenant.
So this is what's going on right here. So Antiochus went back into the land, and this is when he started with read that again.
Then shall he return into his land with great riches.
What verse am I at? Verse 28.
Verse 28.
Yeah.
Then shall he return into his land with great riches.
Yeah.
And his heart shall be against the holy covenant.
Yeah.
And he shall do exploits and return to his own land.
Yeah.
At the time appointed he shall return and come toward the south, but it shall not be as the former or as the latter.
So he said, look, he sent his nephew back. He was over there riding. They was over there riding, so he said, I got to go over and help him. It's been like a year, right? So we go over there to be the king of Egypt, because that's what they saw him as. Even though the other guy was there, they said, well, you just a puppet, right? Antiochus Epiphanes is really running this thing. Go ahead.
Verse 30.
There it comes.
For the ships of Chittim
Yeah.
shall come against him.
Uh-huh.
Therefore he shall be grieved and return and have indignation against the holy covenant.
Mm-hmm.
So shall he do. He shall even return and have intelligence with them that forsake the holy covenant.
So read verse 30 again.
For the ships of Chittim shall come against him. Therefore he shall be grieved and shall return and have indignation against the holy covenant.
Uh-huh.
So shall he do. He shall even return and have intelligence with them that forsake the holy covenant.
So when it say the ships of Chittim, this is when Rome really sticks up his head and says, look, you can't run Egypt, right? This is where we get our resources from. This is where we get our food and stuff from. You cannot run this, right? And you got to think, he had been a hostage at Rome, so he had a lot of respect for those guys, right? I think this is where they get, I won't say I think, I know, this is where they get the line in the sand from. What they did to this guy when he showed up on the beach of Egypt, they drew a line in the sand. And they said, look, Antiochus, if you step outside this line, if you step across this line right here, we going to war. You know what I'm saying? Go ahead.
Now, when Negroes do it, we don't got no power. We'll just say it.
Yeah.
But you got to think, if he's pulling up and they saying that, they ready to go.
Yeah. Well, he bringing up Chittim right there, but I couldn't really find nothing. But it's plenty of books that tell you that Chittim is wrong, right? Chittim is wrong. It's the same. Y'all know it. If y'all don't know, then I'll bring another book in. I know it's in, what's that book? Chittim. It's a book, though. It's called like Rome. You know what I'm saying? And I know Deacon Yawasop bring it out from time to time. But it tell you that Rome is Chittim. Like, that's the same thing. Read verse 30 again.
Daniel chapter 11 and verse 30.
Yeah.
For the ships of Chittim shall come against him. Therefore he shall be grieved and return and have indignation against the holy covenant.
So this is what you call displacement, right? He said, well, I can't beat these dang Romans, so I'm pissed off. I got this whole army out here ready to go to war. I guess I'll go beat up on the Israelites. You know what I'm saying? So that's what happened. They said he couldn't beat up on and take over Egypt, so he said, dang, I guess I go over here. Gotta think a lot of Jews was in Egypt, so he was ready to kill us anyway. You know what I'm saying? So he said, well, let me find where the next best option is. Jerusalem. I go over there. It's a bunch of Negroes over there.
I can't cross that line, so I'm going to turn around and just get them here.
Yeah, I'm going to get them over here. They want to ride over there, I go over here and kill their uncles and them. You know what I'm saying? Displacement is what you would call that. Displaced anger. You ain't got nothing to do with it, so I'm going to just take it out on somebody that is not really involved. Because we was chilling. We was doing the things we was getting our Hellenization on. I don't say we was, but they was. You know what I'm saying? I wasn't included in that. Where I'm at, verse
30.
Read verse 29 and 30 one more time.
Daniel chapter 11 and verse 29.
Bring up that Bible atlas one more time for me.
At the time appointed he shall return and come toward the south.
So at the time appointed, after his nephew had went and set things up, he said, all right, he sat down. Remember, they sat at the table, and they came up with a lie to tell everybody, right? He said, all right, I'm going to come back, and I'm going to be the king of Egypt. You think I'm saying? Go ahead.
But it shall not be as the former, or as the latter.
Yep, he couldn't do it like he was able to do it last time, like he was able to go in there and conquer Egypt. He couldn't go in there and do it this time. Go ahead.
For the ships of Chittim shall...
Because the Romans, this is why he couldn't do it, because the Romans, go ahead.
Shall come against him.
Yep.
Therefore he shall be grieved.
He said, I can't beat these dudes.
And return.
And he said, well, I guess I just go back home. Go ahead.
And have indignation against the holy covenant.
Pissed off. He mad. Them dang Jews, man. Them dang Jews and drop dime that I'm coming over here. You know what I'm saying? Because when you read about it, it tell you that the people of Alexandria was reaching out to the Romans to get Antiochus off of them. You know what I'm saying? But go ahead.
So shall he do. He shall even return and have intelligence with them that forsake the holy covenant.
Okay, let's read this right here. So go to the page before it again, your boater. 242, the other page right before it. Yeah. Down at the bottom, we're going to read the bottom again. It says, Antiochus sought to add Egypt to his territory. How did he seek to do that? He set up his nephew as a puppet ruler, right? He was proclaimed king of Egypt, but when he returned the following year to take control of the land, go ahead to the next page. To take control of the land, the Romans confronted him and told him to leave Rome. Knowing the power of Rome, he returned home. What's up? Yeah, they told him to leave Egypt. Not my fault. Confronted him and told him to leave Egypt. Knowing the power of Rome, so Antiochus Epiphanes knew the power of Rome, he returned home. When he reached Jerusalem, he found that Jason had driven out Menelaus out of the city. He saw this as full revolt. He allowed his troops to kill many of the Jews and determined to put an end to the Jewish religion. Why? Because over in Alexandria, they was prospering. He was pissed off.
You know what I'm saying? He sacrificed a pig on the altar of the temple. Parents were forbidden to circumcise their children. The Sabbath was not to be observed, and all copies of the law were to be burnt. It was a capital offense to be found with a copy of the law. The zeal of Antiochus to destroy Judaism was a major factor in its salvation. All right, let's go back. I'm at verse 31 now.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Daniel chapter 11 and verse 31.
Yeah.
An arm shall stand on his part, and they shall pollute the sanctuary of strength, and shall take away the daily sacrifice, and they shall place abomination that maketh desolate.
So he set up Jupiter in this land. Can you look up Jupiter? The Jupiter. Mythology. Jupiter. Not the planet. I'm almost done, y'all. I'm gonna stop at 35. What time we got? 25. Oh dang. No, I'm running a little long. Just a little bit. So Jupiter. All right, so Jupiter, can you make it any smaller? Jupiter, Latin, the king of the gods in Roman mythology. Well, what was Antiochus IV? He was a Greek. He was a Greek, but in his mind, he was raised Roman. Remember that? He was a hostage. So he set up Jupiter over there because that's what they was worshiping, right? He was a god of the sky and thunder. He is known as Zeus in Greek mythology. See that? His brother's name was Pluto, and his sister was Ceres. Type in eagle in here. Can you like search eagle in here? Yeah, like under here. Yeah, under this thing. Yeah. That's the only one he got. Or the other one. Ah, there you go, right there. See that? So Zeus's symbol was the eagle. Zeus's symbol was the eagle. Go ahead.
That's how you know the Bible real, man.
Bible is a real book, man.
They cannot avoid being
This
the
is,
eagle.
but see what's happening is the transition, right, from Greece to Rome. That's what's happening right here, right? And Antiochus IV is part of that transition. Let's go to it. Let's go to Obadiah right quick. Yeah, man. He was assimilating his mind. Even though he was a Greek, he said, you know what? I'm gonna rock with these Romans right quick. Where Obadiah at? What verse I'm on?
After Amos.
No, I'm slow. It's over here somewhere. Verse 4. All right, go ahead.
The book of Obadiah, verse 4.
Yeah.
Though thou exalt thyself as the eagle,
Yeah.
and though thou set thy nest among the stars, thence will I bring thee down, saith the Lord.
So though they set their nest, remember he set up schools in Jerusalem. He set his nest among the stars. He set up them prophecies, man, they sevenfold. You know what I'm saying? Read verse 3.
Obadiah, verse 3.
Uh-huh.
The pride of thine heart hath deceived thee.
Yeah.
Though thou that dwell in the
Come on.
thou that dwellest in the clefts of the rock, whose habitation is high,
Yeah.
that saith in his heart, who shall bring me to the ground?
Mm-hmm.
Though thou exalt thyself as the eagle,
Though he was worshiping Jupiter, set up Jupiter. Go ahead.
and though thou set thy nest among the stars,
Though you set up a school and took over the temple. Go ahead.
thence will I bring thee down, saith the Lord.
Yeah. Go ahead.
If thieves came to thee,
Uh-huh.
if robbers by night, how art thou cut off?
Mm-hmm.
Would they not have stolen till they had enough?
Yep.
If the grape gatherers came to thee, would they not leave some grapes?
That's what these dang Edomites do. As you see, Antiochus the fourth, he had a lot of territory. He was from India all the way up there to Macedonia, and areas of Lebanon. But he said, you know what? He wanted Egypt too. It just was never enough. It was never enough. Once he got everything that Egypt had, he could think he coming for what the Romans got next.
And the Romans was the same way. Once they got everything that they got, they start taking the stuff from the Greeks. You know what I'm saying? They steal till they can't steal no more. They rob till the bank is empty. You know what I'm saying? And it's the same prophecy, man. This stuff happened over and over and over again. Daniel 11, where we at? That makes sense? Okay. Yeah.
Daniel chapter 11 and verse 31.
Yeah.
An arm shall stand on his part, and they shall pollute the sanctuary of strength, and shall take away the daily sacrifice.
Because the anger that he had towards Alexandria and his nephew, he had to displace it. It was displaced anger. He put it on Jerusalem since he couldn't take it out on them cats that was riding in Alexandria. He took it out on Jerusalem. Go ahead.
And they shall place the abomination that maketh desolate.
Yep, he set up Jupiter in the temple. Go ahead.
And such as do wickedly against the covenant shall he corrupt by flatteries.
Yep.
But the people that do know their God shall be strong and do exploits.
So this is going into the Hasmonean or Hasmonean dynasty. They gonna do exploits, right? They gonna start fighting against them. Go ahead.
And they that understand among the people shall instruct many.
Yep.
Yet they shall fall by the sword and by flame, by captivity and by spoil many days.
Go to 2 Maccabees chapter 6, verse 11. So this is after 2 Maccabees chapter 6 and verse 11. This is after he had his nephew and all that stuff like we read in chapter 4. He couldn't get control over Egypt, right? Read verse read chapter 5 first. Let's start at verse 1.
This is the book of 2 Maccabees chapter 5 and verse 1.
Yeah.
About the same time, Antiochus prepared his second voyage into Egypt.
So he wanted to go back in there like we just read, right? So here's the history of it. He set up his second time to go back into Egypt. Go ahead.
And then it happened that through all the city, for the space almost of 40 days, there were seen horsemen running in the air in cloth of gold and armed with lances like a band of soldiers, and troops of horsemen in array, encountering and running one against another, with shaking of shields and multitude of pikes, and drawing of swords and casting of darts, and glittering of golden ornaments and harness of all sorts.
So, you know, what's interesting about this, like when you read Daniel chapter 10, you always see that the Lord and the Lord of hosts is always in the midst of these battles, right? And so what's happening here is the transition from the power of Greece to the power of Rome, right? And this is part of that coronation. You know what I'm saying? Go ahead.
Verse 4. Wherefore every man prayed that apparition might turn to good.
Yep.
Now when there was gone forth a false rumor, as though Antiochus had been dead, Jason took at the least 1,000 men, and suddenly made an assault upon the city. And they that were upon the walls being put back, and the city at length taken, Menelaus fled into the castle.
So stop. So what's happening is they thought Antiochus Epiphanes was dead. Why would they think that? He was taking the second voyage into Egypt. When he got there, who was there? Rome was waiting on him. They like, oh, Antiochus Epiphanes, he done got killed. Them Romans over there waiting for him. But they did, like I said, they drew the line in the sand. He turned around and went back. So they actually thought that he died. It was a rumor, a false rumor went out. They say he lost to the Romans, but he didn't. He ended up just turning around. What did I ask for? 2 Maccabees chapter 6, verse 11. So you can see that history, right, is written right here of what happened with Antiochus and his second voyage into Egypt. 2 Maccabees chapter 6, verse 11.
2 Maccabees chapter 6 and verse 11.
Yep.
And others that had run together into caves nearby to keep the Sabbath day secretly.
So he pissed off, like we just read. He pissed off, right? He didn't get to go into Egypt. So he come back with his army, start killing fools. Go ahead.
Being discovered to Philip were all burnt together.
They were what?
Were all burnt together
Mm-hmm.
because they made a conscience to help themselves for the honor of the most sacred day.
Okay, hold that. Go back to Daniel chapter 11 and verse 33. Read that thing again.
Daniel chapter 11 and verse 33.
Yeah.
And they that understand among the people shall instruct many.
So those that wanted to try to keep the covenant, go ahead.
Yet they shall fall by the sword.
Antiochus Epiphanes pissed off, though. He started killing them. Go ahead.
And by flame.
And by what?
And by flame.
So I'm going to read 2 Maccabees chapter 6, verse 11 one more time. It says, and others that had run together into caves nearby to keep the Sabbath day secretly, being discovered to Philip, were all what? Burnt together. They was destroyed by flame, like you read over here in Daniel chapter 11. They was destroyed by flame. Let's read Daniel 11:33 one more time.
Daniel chapter 11 and verse 33.
Yeah.
And they that understand among the people shall instruct many.
Yep.
Yet they shall fall by the sword and by flame, by captivity.
And by captivity. Let's go to 1 Maccabees chapter 3, verse 41.
First Maccabees chapter 3 and verse 41.
Yeah.
And the merchants of the country, hearing the fame of them, took silver and gold very much,
Yeah.
with servants, and came into the camp to buy the children of Israel for slaves.
So like we just read, they was taken into captivity. They was buying us as slaves even back here during the time of the Maccabees. So these prophecies that Daniel wrote right here came to pass during the time of Antiochus Epiphanes. All right? Let's go back to Daniel 11, verse 33. One more time.
Daniel chapter 11 and verse 33. And they that understand among the people shall instruct many.
Mm-hmm.
Yet they shall fall by the sword and by flame, by captivity and by spoil many days.
So by spoil, by money, some people was bought off, right? When you read about Eleazar and stuff like that, these guys was trying to get, they was trying to buy them off, and there was others that were bought off, that took the money, right? So that by spoils. Go ahead.
Now when they shall fall, they shall be hoping with a little help.
Uh-huh.
But many shall cleave to them with flatteries.
So many shall cleave to them with flattery. So you got to remember, right? Let's go to, I didn't even write this one down. It should be First Maccabees. It might be at the beginning. Yeah, First Maccabees chapter 1. Let's read verse 41 and 42.
First Maccabees chapter 1 and verse 41. Moreover, King Antiochus wrote to his whole kingdom that all should be one people, and every one should leave his laws. So all the heathen agreed according to the commandment of the king.
Where I'm at? Oh, that was wrong. Go to First Maccabees chapter 1, verse 41 and 42.
That was it.
First Maccabees must be chapter 2. Chapter 2, I'm sorry. Chapter 2. He did that thing too, though. That was important too. You know what I'm saying? But I didn't mean that verse. 41 and 42.
First Maccabees chapter 2 and verse 41.
Yeah.
At that time.
Chapter 2, Boda. Okay, go ahead.
At that time, therefore, they decreed, saying, whosoever shall come to make battle with us on the Sabbath day, we will fight against him. Neither will we die all, as our brethren that were murdered in the secret places.
As them dudes that was hiding in caves got burnt up. They said, we ain't going to be like them. We're going to fight. Go ahead.
Then came there unto them a company of Assyrians.
So the Assyrians are known as the Pharisees. This is the creation of the Pharisees right here. The Assyrians are the original Pharisees. Go ahead.
Who were mighty men of Israel, even all such as were voluntarily devoted unto the law.
So when you go back to Daniel chapter 11 and verse 34.
Daniel chapter 11 and verse 34. Now when they shall fall, they shall be hoping with a little help.
With a little help. The Hasmoneans, go ahead.
But many shall cleave to them with flatteries.
So many cleave to them. The Assyrians came to them and was like, look, we'll fight with you. Go ahead.
And some of them of understanding shall fall to try them, and to purge, and to make them white, even to the time of the end. because it is yet for a time appointed.
So it say, and some of them of understanding shall fall. So you read about, this is known as the Battle of Elisai. Look up Battle of Elisai. Look that up for me. ELASA, I believe it is. Yeah, that's right. Look that up. Look that up for me right quick. And we're gonna go to First Maccabees, chapter 9. All right, the Battle of Elisai or Elasa was fought between Jewish and Seleucid armies during the Maccabean revolt against the Seleucid Empire. The skirmish resulted in the defeat of outnumbered Maccabee forces and the fall of the Jewish leader Judah Maccabee. Despite the defeat and the consequent overtake of Jerusalem by the Seleucids, Judah Maccabee's brothers continued their revolt against the Seleucids and eventually succeeded in expulsion of the Seleucid forces from the region and established an independent kingdom. All right, let's go to First Maccabees chapter 9. And let's start at verse. Let's read verse. Dang, I like all of this. Read verse 1.
First Maccabees chapter 9 and verse 1.
Yeah.
Furthermore, when Demetrius heard that Nicanor and his hosts were slain in battle.
So again, this is back to Nicanor, which we're about to celebrate here soon. He had died, right? Judas Maccabees had defeated him. At this point, Demetrius is ruling. This is one of the sons of Antiochus's. So this would be Antiochus Epiphanes' grandson. Yeah, Demetrius would be his grandson. Go ahead.
He sent Bacchides and Alcimus into the land of Judea the second time, and with them the chief strength of the host.
So he sent a whole lot of people over there to deal with this, right? Jump to verse 13.
Verse 13.
Read verse 10. Dang, I like all of this.
Verse 10.
Yeah.
Then Judas said, God forbid that I should do this thing and flee away from them.
Because there was a bunch of them. They was outnumbered. Go ahead.
If our time be come, let us die manfully for our brethren, and let us not stain our honor.
He said, we ain't running from these Edomites. Go ahead.
With that, the host of Bacchides removed out of their tents and stood over against them, their horsemen being divided into two troops, and their slingers and archers going before the hosts. And they that marched in the forward were all mighty men. As for Bacchides, he was in the right wing. So the host drew near on the two parts and sounded their trumpets. They also of Judas's side, even they sounded their trumpets also, so that the earth shook at the noise of the armies.
Go ahead.
And the battle continued from morning till night. Now when Judas perceived that Bacchides and the strength of his army were on the right side, he took with him all the hardy men.
So he making a military maneuver here. Go ahead.
Who discomfited the right wing and pursued them unto Mount Azotus.
Yep.
But when they of the left wing saw that they of the right wing were discomfited, they followed upon Judas and those that were with him hard at the heels from behind.
So now they getting attacked from both sides. Go ahead.
Whereupon there was a sore battle, insomuch as many were slain on both parts.
Yep.
Judas also was killed, and the remnant fled.
So this is where Judas dies, right? This is the battle of Elias or Elias or Elis. I don't know how y'all want to say it. Eliasa. This is that battle right here, right? Read Daniel chapter 11 and verse 35 one more time.
Daniel chapter 11 and verse 35.
Yeah.
And some of them of understanding shall fall, to try them and to purge, and to make them white, even to the time of the end, because it is yet for a time appointed.
So it was for the time appointed that Judas had to die, for the time appointed that the temple had to be
what's the word? Violated or desecrated. We got it back during the time of Judas as well. But that's what this chapter is going into. So we went all the way from Antiochus III all the way to his grandson, Demetrius. Demetrius. So I don't know. I got anything else? I'm going to stop right there. When you get into verse 36, it's a whole nother ball game. So I look forward to getting into that next. This is the area that the Edomites hate right here. Because this is all about them. You know what I'm saying? This is all about them right here. Let's go to Sirach 39 before I get out of here, man. I just got to read it because it's just so great. See, I waited to read it, though. I held on to it. I knew in my mind I had to read it.
It's the book of Sirach, chapter 39 and verse 1.
Yeah, remember this, Israel. Come on.
But he that giveth his mind to the law of the Most High, and is occupied in the meditation thereof, will seek out the wisdom of all the ancient, and be occupied in prophecies.
You got to understand, when you read the history, right, you can clearly identify the prophecies that have already come to pass, and how they come to pass in sevenfold, over and over and over again. All right, go ahead.
He will keep the sayings of the renowned men.
He going to remember what the leaders have taught him. All right, go ahead.
And where subtle parables are.
Where things that it's subtle, right? You read about the king of the north coming against the king of the south. You don't know. You're going into 6 different Syrian wars, right? You read about the ships of Chittim. You don't know that they talking about the time where the Romans drew the line in the sand and dared Antiochus IV to cross it, right? When they sat at the table and lies to each other, right? It's talking about Antiochus IV dealing with his nephew, Ptolemy Philometor, right? These are subtle parables. Where subtle parables are, go ahead.
He will be there also.
You'll be able to identify him. I can see it. Oh, that was subtle, but I caught it. Go ahead.
He will seek out the secrets of grave sentences and be conversant in dark parables.
But people will say, man, that's heavy, man. This is hard. How do you get all of that? You know what I'm saying? You got to be occupied in it, right? I read this stuff like almost daily. You know what I'm saying? So with that, Israel, man, we'll put my email up there. I'm going to shut it down. Y'all got any questions? Any questions, Israel? You don't have to. Is that something? Is that something right there, Boda? Is that a question? Oh, okay. The Bible Atlas is Holman's Quick Source. Holman Quick Source Bible Atlas with charts, maps, and biblical reconstructions. Holman Quick Source Bible Atlas. That was about it. So I pray that this was edifying. I pray it wasn't too boring. You know what I'm saying? I pray I didn't put you to sleep too bad. You know what I'm saying? You taking notes? You got my email up there? All right, Israel. With that, shalom, Most High Christ bless. Have a blessed day.
We used to scream black power while Heron was pushed. But at the end of the day, nothing's in vain. IUIC has been given a vision. The tents of Judah has risen. Many has attempted the mission. Minor murmuring, omitting, and missing the mark. Just reading that he had the flame of fire in his eyes gave us the spark. We on Paul's mission. We out on the road. Purple and gold. From Mexico, Cuba, Haiti, Ghana, Sierra Leone. 144,000 boots banging, concrete crackling. These are our men repented at heart. The scriptures is proof. IUIC, we deliver the truth.